example, my first orientation or initiation into spirituality was attending a Gita Jnana Yajna by Swami Chinmayananda way back in 91. I had just finished my engineering and I was working. Okay, at that time I had no clue about psychology. One of my friend was going, so he asked me to come, so I used to go. I was fascinated by it. It was almost like me first time reading, I'm okay or okay. This was the second moment when I felt really fascinated and struck a chord in me. But I didn't know how to do further. I didn't have the ways and means to pursue it. But I just kept reading what. But once I started my TA training and I looked into this philosophy of okay, immediately, the dots got connected. Whatever Gita is saying about dharma, for example, and swadharma, and the whole idea of karma philosophy, it's all so integrated with script theory, with our developmental theories, our physis, and of course, okayness. Because fundamental the principle of Gita, Saru always used to say this. There is an innate divinity in all of us. Okay, and that is what okayness is at highly spiritual level. And of course, incidentally, Father George was also a priest, so he was not a religious priest in that sense. He was highly spiritual. So that was my initiation into deepening with. So Vedanta made sense for me only through TA. I could make a one-on-one connection to any philosophy, any principle that you talk of Vedanta, how it is an extrapolation of many of the things that we see TA actually. So they're all integrated. I wouldn't even say interconnected. They are integrated. They are different aspects of the same thing, manifesting in different ways.
So these truths are always there. We have to discover it in some sense.
Yeah, they are different dimensions, different perspectives. It's not either this or that. Everything has its own time and context for application. That's why even I strongly believe, even though theory is called transactional analysis, which is fundamentally to break down things to its fundamental elements, but no analysis of any use unless it is followed by synthesis. If you're looking at it from a thought perspective, analysis need to be followed by synthesis for us to make meaning. Otherwise, it just be fragmented. So that's why psychology and TA could help us to analyze, and then it's Vedanta and spirituality which help us to really synthesize and make meaning of it.
So
Then
these are all long-standing truths in Advaita Vedanta in different ways. Which origins of wisdom of TA still hold power today? What would you say has sustained, and what is it that brings that energy to individuals and groups to use TA for what they want?
this whole idea of physis is central, even though Byrne did not write much about it. He or talked as the goal of TA. For example, he talked of autonomy as the goal of TA. He meant autonomy more from a social sense, more again contextualized mid 1900s post World War scenario where individuals' right and individual power was so important. So he thought autonomy was important. Closest you can define it as a freedom. But I think you can extrapolate it to at a spiritual level. We are talking about liberation and freedom, right? Not being bound by this mundane things of life. But often, even there is one element often gets missed. Erikman did not only talk about autonomy, he also talked about autonomy with social responsibility. I think that is an important element. I think that has more to do with the coming days, the way transactional analysis could grow or contribute. Because nowadays we are again seeing fragmentation, polarization everywhere. And Erikman actually called TA as not just a theory of psychology. He said it's a theory of social psychiatry, which is basically as a means to deal with social systems and help social systems heal, of which, of course, organizations, institutions are all social systems. So it is fundamentally a framework to study and work with social systems.
And it's
And
interesting is
therefore,
talk about psychiatry. Psychiatry is usually one-on-one. When Byrne speaks about social psychiatry, it is about how is that to deal with interpersonal relationships, groups, systems, right? Like, it's just interesting segue of how Byrne.
Yes, he beautifully. He didn't, of course, elaborate too much on it. Of course, if he had lived maybe another 20 years, he would have done more. The most important aspect, most neglected or ignored aspect, because universally we are becoming very individualistic culture, right? Even though we Indians claim us to be highly group oriented, collectivistic, practically, if you really look at it, most of our, at least the corporate cultures, are fundamentally individualistic. The whole capitalistic culture, his economic system, that socio-economic system that we are part of, is fundamentally individualistic. So therefore, it's important to look at the other element he talked about, that is social responsibility. And reason Diane Salters and others wrote about homonymy as another goal of homonymy, is inspired by the South African concept of Ubuntu and all that stuff, which is fundamentally what Danta also talks about. I am just a drop in the ocean. So in the sense, I'm the ocean because the ocean is in me, but I'm not the ocean because I'm a drop in the ocean. So I think that sense of being part of a larger whole, I think, is a very important element, which will be an important area of development in future in TA. I think that is again the spiritual seed of TA, in my opinion.
Understood. And you said you wished Byrne was around for 20 years and there was because he could write a lot more about group work and social psychiatry. So, hinting towards something's missing today. So, what do you think are some elements missing today in terms of group work, etc.?
Okay, so there is something not fully done which needs to get done.
See, the beauty of TA is it's constantly evolving. And sometimes it's also, it's what would I say, it's flip side, because it's evolving so much that people wonder, okay, which model are we talking about? Even ego state, there are so many models of ego state. So that could be the downside of it. But still, that's what keeps TA, alive framework, that we are constantly evolving. New theories are coming. For example, in organizational field also, there are so many theories coming, but many a times it is modification of the individual theories, which is ego states or script theories and so on and so forth. In my opinion, we need original organizational or group theories, which is based on those fundamental philosophy and principles of TA, and which may be compatible with all the other elements of TA. We have a strong model about the individual, study the individual's mind and so on. We have a strong model about the interpersonal, what happens when people meet. They're very strong in these two. And that's why, as a psychotherapeutic model, it's so popular and it's so effective. We have a group theory that Byrne developed, but it was a nascent work. He just wrote one book on structural dynamics of organization groups. We need more to develop on that area. Okay, not just again going back to the individual theories in TA, but to really develop something from what the group imago model is a fantastic model which we need to build on. There's so much that organizations can learn about how the individual's image or perception of the system impacts the system and vice versa. So therefore, as a consultant, as a leader, as a manager, how can I get insights into those unseen and stuff in a group? And therefore, what can I do in order to change and facilitate growth? That is an area which we can. Culture is another big area we could work on. The only culture model that we often talk from a TA point of view is the cultural parent, which is again very much developed from the individual parent, adult, child, ego state framework. But do we have a cultural model based on evolved from groups and organizations, not something evolved to understand individual and then applied in a group setting? So I think that is the work that we need. So more applied work, and from our work with the organizations, new theories and models evolving, emerging from it. And of course, more from, I personally want something emerging from Indian context. We have so much of experience working with clients and so on. So can we research that and build? I think that, to me, that is the missing element. Also, FISIS based. Oh, that is another important aspect which I want. Because traditionally, because it was originally a psychotherapy model, we have been more of pathology based theories. What was not working so that we could fix. But I think we need more and more developmental models, looking at what is working, like what you're talking about, positive psychology or appreciative inquiry, those approaches where, okay, what is working? Many organizations are working, they're striving, they're doing well. Of course, they can be better. So what is working? And therefore, how can we met? So more and more models based on that, on 5 6. I think that is also a refreshing development for us.
So since the time Byrne wrote, hippie movement was happening, there was a lot of churn in the individual level. I'm thinking, yes, there is a lot of scope for evolution. That is inspiring. So today we have a different world with positive psychology having evolved and a lot of other things happened. I'm wondering what TA has to offer and what can we build to offer maybe for the people just starting their careers today in today's environment, or the way organizations are, or the way midlife crisis hits people, or whatever senior leaders are struggling with. What can TA offer to them with this thing in mind? It's a different world today.
Yes. I see immense potential in leveraging TA into coaching, mentoring. I think those are the areas which has more and more developmental. We may still make good use of the individual based models, but still they could be used to help more for life enhancing, not necessarily to fix something which is not broken. It's not that these people are broken. The thing is, they are at some point, they want to be better. So there's a whole lot of what is already there could be leveraged in this area. So therefore, that is something we need to focus. Not only building new theory for the sake of new theory. I think how can we effectively and creatively use the frameworks and theories that are already there? This whole, that's another theory, since you asked me long back. Something that fascinating to me, which is not Eric Bernian, much later than Byrne it came out, this is the cycles of development theory. Cycles of power by Pamela Levin. Okay, it's a beautiful model that helps understand the whole life cycle of an individual, not only the individual, any change process. It's a beautiful framework to help budding professionals and entrepreneurs to look at what is going on, because we are in this constant change. We are in this constantly changing environment. So therefore, we have a beautiful model of change in TA. The cycles of power, based on which Julia developed competence curve. How can we use that in order to help people navigate through these challenges?
So imagine, so we are hoping that the audiences that will be listening to this would be somewhere between 25-year-old to senior leaders in the organization. So what advice would you give to a 25-year-old starting their career? How understanding of their origins, of their own patterns and interactions through TA will help them navigate their personal life, personal choices, professional life more effectively?
That's an interesting question. Because the first thing is advice. But I could share what worked for me in my change process. And I think it was a theme of one of the first international conferences I was also part of in Coimbatore, 1997. The theme is awareness, action, integration. That is something we need to invest in. For me, the idea is change doesn't happen by itself. And we need to consciously invest in it. And it doesn't it's not magic. They'll attend a workshop, I will change. Or I read a book, it doesn't happen that way. So the first thing is investing in being aware of me. I need to be willing to look at myself. Take a hard look at myself, become my own critic. And if I'm not able to do it by myself, am I open and willing to seek somebody's help? A friend, a colleague, a family member, whoever's help to getting to know about me, feedback. If not, a professional, say a coach or a counselor or a mentor. So we need to be open to seek this basic awareness about me. That is the first thing that I would suggest. Second, awareness alone is not enough. Many times people tend to believe that magically once I become aware, I will be different. No, we need to consciously act. I know that. Only then change will happen. Nobody's going to do it for us. Because unless I do something different, it's not going to happen. There's only one person in the world I can change, and that is me. Okay. So awareness need to transform into action. Then comes the most third important element, which is integration. One of the main problems, many a times we keep hearing again and again in training or coaching or counseling or whatever is, yeah, I did well, I did this, but after about a month or so, I'm back to square one. That's because, yeah, I did take action, but I did not have systems to support me to sustain the change so that it becomes an integrated part of me. So that's one thing I insist on, especially the youngsters nowadays, because there is so much emphasis on, oh, I can do everything all by myself. No, there's very little that we could do all by myself. We are part of a system, so we need support systems in order to sustain any change action that we take. It could be a one other friend, it's fine, or it could be a professional, it's fine. But I think the most important element of these three is having a support system for us to hold in the process of change. So I think that is the most important thing: awareness, action, and integration. For that, we need
Lovely.
to invest and build on support systems.
Lovely. So I know you don't like the word advice, but I'll still persist on that question. So imagine a 40-year-old who's going through crossroads in life, rethinking of their life's journey. Mostly a 40-year-old will have two decades of experience of work life, etc. They are going through crossroads, right? They are rethinking their life's journey. So what unique insights can TA provide to understand their scripts and also decide what their next chapter could be?
Yeah. See, one of the important aspects about script is change is possible, and change is possible at any point of time in our life. Okay, I think that is something very important for us to remember, because one of the things constantly hear clients, counseling clients around this middle age 40s is, oh, what can I do at this point? I'm frozen in life. I reached a plateau. These are the words that we hear. I still shudder whenever I think of this experience. In one of the training programs said, I think I will die around 55. What? Why? Is it? I'm 30, 35 now. Already I'm burning out. I don't see myself doing anything beyond, because I will retire around 50 or so. And beyond that, what do? I don't know. So I think that is an important aspect. And transactional analysis very clearly says, one of the fundamental philosophies, as we all know, is life is decisional. We choose our destiny, and these decisions can be changed at any point of time. So I think investing in our own learning and learning new things for me is the most important thing at the 40s age. Because I still remember, again, I could only talk from my experience, it's not an advice. I started running when I was 45. I was not an athlete or a sports person all through my school or college. I started running at 45. And I ran my longest 100 kilometers when I was 53. And then when I was 55. So if anybody told me 10 years, 15 years back that I'm going to do these things, I would have laughed at myself actually. So that permission transaction again gives us, it not only gives us tools and frameworks to like script and injunctions and so on to just understand the miserable part of our stories, it also gives us a whole lot of stuff which worked for our lives. So how can I amplify it? Like we had so much permission to do so many things and be where we are today. So I think that is an important element for those in this middle age crisis or whatever we call it. Because identity is the main problem we have at that age. I've been successful all these years, but how long can I sustain it? So what will I become once I'm not successful anymore? So therefore, yeah, give ourselves the permission to forge new identities. That has helped me a lot.
So what about the next stage, Surya? Just thinking about it, you reach the 50 and you haven't yet done any quote unquote work. You started at 25, but there are people who are like senior leadership roles and the struggles they go through of being lonely, staring at retirement, what comes next. Are they done or what is TA for them? What can they look at?
It's not the end at all. Again, going back to Saru. Saru started a TA training and when she was 55. I think beyond 55, I
Wow.
think. Okay. She was by education a lawyer. She didn't practice law though. Okay. She was a proud mother of four and then grandmother of more and so on and so forth. Every time she used to introduce herself like that. She started a TA training at 55 and she got a certification, I think around 58, 59 or something like that. Okay. And of course, she lived up to 80 plus. And the day before she died, she did supervision work. It was during the COVID period, and she was in bed and she was supervising one of her trainee online.
I
Yeah,
remember she was reading my thesis. I do recall 2 days before she passed away.
I think that is something we need to emphasize. These notions, again, this is coming from TA, we call this cultural parent. This notion that, okay, at this age, I can't do anything further, or that's nothing new. It's again, it's a very cultural, thing that we have interjected into ourselves. Interjected in the sense, it just almost feels like it is fact, but it's not fact. We all know that, and we are umpteen examples. Actually, that is one of the other aspects which I love in this TA community. It's very easy. If you go to a TA conference, especially world conference, it's very easy to see people in their 100 actually. Anita English is another one of my biggest heroes in TA. Okay. And she died when she was 105, and she died on her own terms.
Yeah.
And she was proofreading her autobiography that year. And she was 105 when she died. Jean Ilsley Clark, I think, was 104. And I think Muriel James was again 100 plus or something. So these are the real models. So we are talking about 50s and 60s. There is again, it's a very, very limiting cultural parental belief, which we need to collectively throw away. And I tell all my friends, but that work has to start in your 40s. We need to plan for a retirement. Something cannot magically happen. Of course, sometimes we are lucky to be in the right place, what it happened to Saru, but otherwise, we all have to plan. For example, we're talking about this emptiness syndrome. That is what we have at that period, 55, 60, and so on and so forth. You know it's going to be empty, so start preparing. Build your own network, build your own circle, develop your own hobbies, learn a new skill.
So in some sense, what I'm hearing from you is never too late to learn, never too old to learn.
Yes, because that is a fundamental thing, no? We choose our destiny, so therefore we can choose and change when at any point of time.
Beautiful. We could keep talking much longer. It's so
I
fascinating.
know.
But it brings us to a truly insightful conversation to a point where the OK Air was getting into this. And what a journey it has been, looking at the fascinating origins and your contributions of TA to India and how it has moved across the world and what it can do for at any age. It is so powerful. So thank you so much for that, Surya.
Yeah, absolutely, Piyush. And it's such truly powerful to understand beginnings, core choices, initial motivations. I was with Surya when he spoke about his early struggles. It provides such profound clarity for where we are today and where we are headed. It really helps us settle into that knowing that I am okay, no matter where we have come from.
And remembering that this exploration is a cornerstone of how we believe in human OS, growth by design. So it's planned growth. It is not happening by happenstance. So the philosophy is about intentionally understanding your fundamental operating system, the human operating system, and unlock continuous personal and professional growth and integrate all of that together. Yeah, just like we've seen with you, Surya, tracing back to those initial decisions, we can truly redesign our futures.
This was
Really,
fascinating.
really grateful, Surya, for generous sharing of your original story and some insights that I took for myself. Truly honor to have you on the show.
It was quite a fascinating thing for me, actually, because I never get tired talking about my
Yeah.
experience with the TA community because much of the energy comes from the community and the experience. It's so generous. I always tell people ask me, why do you volunteer for so many works? Because right from 2001, I took up my engagement with formal roles in the international TA community, and of course, little earlier in our own community. My only thing is I've got so much from this community. People just supported and helped and gave their time and themselves for so many years. And it's a small way we have to giving back. I learned as conscious reciprocity.
Thank you so much. So actually, that is what I was thinking of in terms of our listeners now for being with us on this journey of discovery. And for what you bring to the table in terms of your curiosity. That's really what makes all this possible, listeners.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed today's deep dive into origins, please remember to subscribe to the OK Air on your favorite broadcast platform. Leave us a rating and a review. It truly helps others discover our conversations and also helps us improve our segments. You can also share feedback on who should be the next guest on our podcast.
And don't forget to visit the Human OS website for more on Human OS growth by design and how you can intentionally build your own path to growth. You can also connect with us, Eric and myself, on social media handles like LinkedIn to continue these conversations.
So until next time, keep exploring your own origins, keep seeking that clarity, and always remember the OK Air.
See you next time.